All right, folks, I've got two after the hour, so hopefully we've got any last-minute stragglers that have made their way in. But I want to say, first of all, welcome. I hope that you can all hear my audio. I'm going to paste it again in the text chat, but if you can't hear me, you can't hear me right now. So I'm going to put it in the text chat for us. Your lines are muted, so take solace in that fact. But if you cannot hear me talking, do me a favor, dial in. And actually, Tim pointed it out. I missed his last name, but Tim pointed out a nice pro tip. You can download the WebEx app on your phone, and as long as you allow all the permissions, you should be able to hear. But you definitely want to stay logged in on the computer so you get the full screen experience. So I'm really, really excited to be delivering this content for you all today, but I am not alone in that endeavor. So I want to start off just by introducing myself, and I will turn on my camera so you can see me hanging out in my basement. My name is Andy Carasquillo. I am a senior sales trainer out of Cincinnati, Ohio. And like most of you, I started my career with the Legacy Sprint brand. I began my career frontline first, just like you all, about 13 years ago as a part-time retail consultant. And I worked my way up the ladder to the role of the retail store manager before transitioning into my role actually 3 years ago on the 1st of July as a trainer. So like I said, I'm very excited to be leading you through this content. And before I do want to allow my partner in crime, Alicia, to introduce herself. Now for today's session, I'll kind of be running point, but she will be the guide on the side. And later on in session 2 and session 3, we will trade roles. So I'll take the back seat while she takes the lead. But she's going to lead you through some amazing content as well. So just keep an eye out for Alicia's name when you see it in text chat. She's going to pass on some wisdom or help you out if you're having any technical issues. So with all that said, I will pass the ball officially over to my partner, Alicia, if you want to come on to camera and come to mic and introduce yourself.
All right. Hey, team. Hopefully, y'all can see me. But yes, indeed, my name is Alicia Perez. I'm based out of Hesperia, California. I am a senior trainer for a virtual delivery team and have been with T-Mobile with the company now for, cannot believe it, but 18 years coming up. So time flies when you're having a good time, that's for sure. I like to say that I started when I was 10 years young. So that way I don't feel too old. Anyhow, I did start at the call center down in Colorado Springs and then just realized that when I helped at the training department, that's really where I knew I wanted a career path. And just been, having a good time trained at the call center, eventually made my way as a virtual delivery trainer and love what I do. So just like Andy called out, I won't be doing a lot of talking today, but y'all are in good hands. Andy has some amazing information to really provide you today, but you'll be hearing that from me tomorrow for sure, and then of course the final day for sure, so be ready indeed. Thank you, Emily, you're my best friend now. All right, with that being said, team, we're going to get this party started, so I'm going to turn it back over to Andy. I'm going to mic out, hide camera. Here you go. Thanks, Andy.
Hey, thanks so much, Alicia. I appreciate it. I will say on top of Alicia and her illustrious experience that she has, we do have some subject matter experts that will be answering questions that you have along the way. You'll see a few of those folks. I think we've got just about all of them here, but we've got a lot of help. So we have Marlena Avery, Keith Jacobs, Heidi Rowland, and Brett Spencer that will be helping to answer some of the questions that you have throughout the day. So I'd like to start with Marlena, if that's okay, if you want to come to the microphone and introduce yourself and maybe share your area of expertise.
Sure. Thanks, Andy. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Marlena Avery. I come from the Legacy Sprint side of the house, where I've been with Sprint for 19 years. The areas of expertise that I have for today are going to be in store operations and in inventory, and maybe a few other areas, although maybe not an expert, but I know enough to be dangerous in some places. But I've got lots of help on this call to get your questions answered. Keith, do you want to introduce yourself?
Thank you. Yeah, appreciate that. Keith, are you with us? not showing a mic next to your name, so you might have some audio. There we go. I see it now. Not sure if it's just me, but I'm not hearing Heath. Anybody else? Okay.
I'm not either. I can tell you that I've been working with Heath for, this is Marlena, I've been working with him for about a year and a half, maybe a couple years on integration stuff. He comes from the T-Mobile side and he's a wealth of knowledge. So if he can't come off mute, he certainly will be answering questions in the Q&A section.
No sweat at all. And we will talk about that. Thank you for planting that seed, Marlena. And I just got a note from Heath. It looks like he's having some headset troubles that are preventing him from coming off mute. So we will maybe circle back to him. I know that we had a couple others that were potentially joining us in Heidi. And I'm not sure if Heidi's out there. I don't see her in our panelist view. So if you see Heidi responding to anything in text chat, her last name is Rollan, R-O-L-L-A-N. So you may want to pay close attention to anything that she says. And then Brett Spencer will be our other SME that might be joining us here shortly as well. And I think if everybody could check their mics just to make sure that they're muted. For participants, you should be good, but just the panelists. I think I was hearing a little bit of feedback. But rest assured, we're here to support you. So not only myself, just kind of facilitating the content, and Alicia really working on some of the more technical aspects and keeping an eye on text chat, we have those subject matter experts to help us out. So I want to talk a little bit about how they can do it, okay, how they're going to be able to help us out. So in order to answer your questions, our subject matter experts will be monitoring the Q&A pod. Now, I want to be clear, the chat pod that you're seeing everybody talk in right now is not the Q&A pod. It's actually docked probably likely below it for you, depending on how you're accessing WebEx. It might be in a different spot. But the Q&A pod is where you can put any questions that you have as we go throughout this content. So we want to make sure that you put your burning questions in there. Also keep in mind that we've set aside 30 minutes of our 3 hours today for a Q&A session with our SMEs at the end of the call. One thing that we're going to do a little bit differently, I think, than maybe what we did in our first session earlier today, is we're going to take a few moments throughout the content to stop at different points, and just to make sure that the SMEs can color in any details that they think are going to be relevant for you to set you up for success, but also maybe address some of the Q&A questions that are coming through in the pod. I want to reinforce that you'll have a lot of resources at your disposal. And I will ask that if you're going along and you're thinking of questions, maybe park them for just a little bit, right? Don't just get in the car and start driving and send them through the Q&A. Maybe park them in your notes in a specific spot, type them up or write them down, because it can be really, really helpful if we don't clutter the Q&A with questions that maybe we're going to answer along the way. So you have that Q&A pod to ask any of those questions, but you'll also notice the chat pod. And the chat box is where I will ask you at times to share your thoughts. I can see that you're already doing it, but if you want to show your excitement around some of the day's content, how awesome something is or how excited you are about that, the chat box will be the place to do that. Now, the key is when you're sending something through the chat, you want to use the drop down and hit the all participants option from that drop down. So the chat box looks a little different. I'm going to put a little line break in here so you can see it. Chat is here, okay? So you can see my name in there to all of you participants that this is the chat box. Questions that you put in here may get missed. So if you're going to put a question out there, I want you to do your best to put it in the Q&A pod, okay? And sometimes I'll see a question fly in and I'm like, that's a good question. Put it in the Q&A pod so we can circle back to it, okay? But the goal is, this is really about making this training successful for you. And that's one of the best ways that we're going to be able to do it. So with that chat box and understanding that's where we're going to be communicating some of our excitement, can you just let me know if that all makes sense to you, that I'm going to use the Q&A pod for questions, and I hope you have them. We want to answer them. And you're going to use the chat box to hide or to share any of your excitement. Just give me a good to go or a G2G. And I did see one question come in, and if you're wondering why it says you're under a hidden attendee or anything like that, I will say we have over 700 folks on the call, so we're going to be maybe moving through quite a bit of this stuff quickly, and we won't be able to maybe have all of you visible like you maybe are traditionally used to. So with that said, let's take a look at what some of our goals are for today. And before we do that, I want to set some expectations about just general expectations for housekeeping to make sure that you're set up for success and you can get the most out of this experience. So first and foremost, I want you to commit to this training by being on time and attending all of your sessions. So this is session 1 of 3. So we'll have a session 2 tomorrow on Tuesday, same time, different link. And then we'll have session 3 on Wednesday, which is again going to be the same time, but it's also going to be a different link. So you should have invites for those there. But I want you to commit to attending these trainings and these sessions on time. And really, if you can, rope in your leadership and your dealers in your dealership to encourage them to be here too. Also, own your learning by being present and in the moment. You may have heard this before, but it's a great reminder. We need to stay engaged. We need to avoid distractions and focus on actively listening. And one thing I will add to that, please, please, please take notes. We want you to be successful. And I know if it's anything like me, I'm only going to remember about 20% of what I learn in a training class unless I take notes that I can reference back to. So whether you like to use pen and paper, that's my preference. I like to use actually an app on my iPad to write out my notes. I like handwritten notes. I just seem to remember better. Or if you just want to type them up, I'm good with that. Just have some type of notes. And I'll call it out from time to time, things that I think you should be writing down, but it's only going to be important for you to understand what you need to write down. That's going to be the goal. So with that said, if a topic or process is something that you're already proficient in, challenge yourself to think about the new leader in the session. They may not feel as comfortable speaking up, so ask the questions so that they won't have to. We also want to ask that you respect one another as fellow leaders. We all come from different backgrounds. We have different experiences. We all bring something unique to the table, and that's what makes this company so awesome. So listen, be respectful, take notes of the ideas and questions and the best practices that are shared, because they may come up again as you start to prepare your teams for day 1. Also, we'll maintain confidentiality throughout this training by not sharing information outside of the training that may hurt others. So training is a safe environment. There's no question that's too silly to ask. I really want to issue a challenge to you all, though. Challenge yourself to grow your skills. Take notes so you can coach your team. Have fun. Let's be better today than we were yesterday, and let's be better tomorrow than we are today. So if everyone's ready, I'd like to get started. As you can see, if you're having any audio issues, I hope you're not. But if you know anybody that is, make sure that they know they can dial in or even use the app on their device. I mentioned it earlier, today's session is the first of 3 sessions, and we're going to be scheduled for 3 hours today. But we do have a bio break planned at about the halfway point. So you'll all be able to take that time to restore your personal comfort. I do want to define some of our goals for today's sessions. Now, today we'll be focused on understanding key operational processes within your stores. Tomorrow's session will be centered around the retail integration support or co-location staffing model. It's about getting help from somebody across the brand. You know, somebody, since we're Legacy Sprint on this call, somebody coming from a T-Mobile store to maybe be in your store and help, and vice versa. Our third session, we will leverage the resources available to drive sales performance and deliver the uncarrier experience. And that's where Alicia is really going to share some awesome stuff and what it really means to be a leader in the new T-Mobile. So if you're all feeling pretty good to go, I want to walk through this agenda real quick, and then I'm going to show a way that we can really get interactive. So we just covered our learning objectives. Then we're going to use this thing called WooClap. And you may know what WooClap is. You may not. That's okay if you don't. You will know after today. But a high-level overview of what we're going to cover today, really from session 1 I told you it's all about the operational experiences. We're going to look from front of house to back of house. We are going to look at how inventory flows should work. We're going to use that WooClap again. So you, again, probably are wondering, what the heck is WooClap? We'll find out. At that point, we'll take a break. And then we'll come back and we'll learn about some of the mobile technology that you'll be using within your stores to help serve your customers and to carry out some of these operational tasks. We'll then cover some safety and security best practices and measures that we can take to make sure that we're operating in a safe and effective manner. And then we'll check our knowledge, check your knowledge, I should say, with some different kind of quiz type questions to see where you're at and make sure we can reinforce some of the key learning principles. Then from there, we'll open it up to our Q&A. Now, remember, sprinkled in throughout, we're going to give our SMEs a chance to address the group and maybe reiterate or maybe go into some detail on some of the finer points of what we're talking about, because we got a lot of great questions in our first session, and we just want to make sure that, you know, we kind of get this information to you when we should. So with all that said, if you feel like you're ready to go, do me a favor and give me a G2G in the text chat. Just let me know. I see a lot of G2Gs coming through. So I'm going to share my screen now because I want to introduce you to this fantastic tool that we call WooClap. So Alicia, could you just give me a shout out, make sure that I'm able to be seen okay?
Yep, all is good.
All is good. All right. So we will take a look at WooClap. And actually, this is a tool that you're probably, if you haven't heard of WooClap, it's pretty similar to something called Kahoot. I'm not sure if you've ever played Kahoot, or maybe you've done like the trivia that they have at B-Dubs. We're going to use WooClap for pulse checks to see how you're feeling about the content, but really also to reinforce some key learning principles within our content. So what you'll want to do to access WooClap is you'll want to pull out a secondary device if possible. So whether that be a mobile phone, a tablet, a second computer, maybe even if you have one, because I'm going to share a link with you, also a QR code, so that you can access WooClap. On my screen share, I will then share a question. So I'll go into that. Let's try and get everybody logged in first. So you should see on my screen how you can access it. So there's two ways. You can come in and scan this QR code or type in this link. It's going to ask you to register with a username, and I want you to use your username as first name, last name, no space, no period, no other punctuation, just first name, last name. You can go to wooclap.com/SORS6PM, or you can scan the QR code. I can already see you're joining because I've got 130 plus folks joining our session. So I'll give you a few minutes to get logged in, and then I'll give you, maybe not a few minutes, I'll give you about a minute to get logged in, and then I will go ahead and get us started. Give you a little bit more instruction. All right, maybe about 15 more seconds. I'd love to see the participation. I saw a lot of enthusiasm in the text chat. This is going to be a great way to show some enthusiasm. For your username, I saw a question pop through. You're going to use your first name, last name, all one word. Got about 388. Can we get to 400 before I get started? All right, we're at 400. We're going to go ahead and get started. On my screen share, I will share a question with you. So it'll appear on the screen that you're looking at now. You're going to use your secondary device to answer that question as you see fit. Now, to get us warmed up, I'm going to ask you a kind of general get-to-know-you question. Now, don't worry, your answers on this question are not tracked, so be as honest as you are comfortable being. So with that said, we got 420 folks ready to go. I'm going to click the arrow to take us over to our first question. In 1 or 2 words, describe how you're feeling today about beginning the new T-Mobile journey. You got excited, anxious, a little apprehensive, I think someone put. I think that's natural based on, change, part of the change cycle. I hope that you walk out of here feeling more excited. Pumped, I see. You guys are going through so much change right now. I know it can be challenging, but I'm so glad to see how positive you are with so much of this. We've only got about 140 responses, so I'll let this word cloud kind of work its magic. Excited seems to be the theme. I saw beast mode. I got to call beast mode out. I love it. Excited times, I think, 10,000. I saw juice come through the text chat. Scared but confident. Sometimes fear in the right amount of doses, right? It's not such a bad thing always. Seeing some great stuff. Someone put Jazzy. I gotta call Jazzy out. Ready to provide the best Un-carrier experience. I love it. Yeah, I think excited is definitely winning the day. I will say I feel that way, and I probably feel degrees of what everyone's feeling. I'm going through a change myself, right? I said I came from the legacy yellow brand, but I am super stoked, and I've been probably where you've felt, at least at some point, as I've been going through this transition myself. Great stuff. So, Elise, I don't know if you want to grab a screenshot of that just to maybe share, but absolutely love seeing it. We see cautiously optimistic, money hungry, so super excited. So much great stuff in there, and I absolutely love it. So that's just a taste of WooClap. Keep in mind, you don't have to close this window or anything like that. We're going to use this same link to look at more questions later on today. So that was our first, like I said, our first taste of WooClap. But I do want to walk you through a little bit about what we're going to get into today. Now, I'm not going to try and pretend that you all don't know your stuff. I actually think as we cover some of these topics in the training, you might know more about this stuff than I do. So why are we going to be covering some of these topics if you already know them so well? Why are they so important? Well, really, I just want you to think about looking at all this stuff with a fresh set of eyes. Because I do know that some things have changed. I know that there are things that are going to be new for you. What details haven't you noticed? How will you teach a new team member? Consider how you'll own your learning experience and then help other leaders and the mobile experts in your stores build their expertise. Our goal for today is really on day one of the new T-Mobile, you, your store, your team, and our whole company is set up for success. That's how we're going to measure success. The question is, are you with us? And to kick things off, our development team put together a fantastic video that I want to share with you now. And I just hope it gets you as fired up or makes you feel jazzy, like someone said, as it does for me. So let me stop sharing here and switch over to this video. All right, folks. So I know that for some, based on the setup you have, you may have missed the video, but I hope you all feel ready to run through a brick wall like I do if you were able to watch it. For those that missed it, don't worry. You're going to have access to this content later. And it was the greatest video you've ever seen. Adam's like, I'm going to let you finish, Andy, but that was probably the greatest video of all time. That's what he tells me. All right. So I will say you will have access to this content. So don't worry. We're going to make sure that you have it in your hands and you're ready to go. But for me, that's a video that really kind of gets me pumped up. So I do want to share my screen again and start walking through some of the content. Now, at T-Mobile, the operational excellence is how our frontline teams deliver exceptional experiences for our customers. And as you know, our retail locations are welcoming, they are clean, they are organized. We sell innovative, best-in-class products and services, and our teams uphold the highest operating standards and values to consistently drive great performance, and our amazing people, that's you folks, work hard every single day to deliver the Un-carrier experience. So for this session, we're going to be looking at a lot of the operational processes. So we're going to look at store opening and closing, how we handle cash. We're also going to be looking at daily paperwork, managing our inventory, and along with inventory comes returning equipment or processing warranty exchanges. And then I mentioned earlier, we're going to take a look at the mobile technology that's going to be installed within your stores to help you serve our customers. And then we'll look at preparing for emergencies. The one thing I'll say, though, the main goal through all of this is that you're ready so that you can say on day one, yes, we can help you. Whether that customer comes in shopping for the Magenta brand or the Yellow brand, you can say to every single customer, yes, we can help you. Now, I'm going to give you a friendly reminder as we start to dive into this content. Please take notes. Have your questions ready for our SMEs. Use that Q&A pod as necessary. And help your fellow leaders. Share what you learn with your teams as we go. So managing front and back of house is where we're going to start. Now, some of the topics covered in this section may be familiar for some and new to others. But one thing that I can almost guarantee is that most of it will be recently updated. So it's going to be new or different. Now, take notes, ask the questions so you're able to help out. So I want to introduce you to our in-store operations daily checklist. Now, I know that you all know how to open and close your store and the steps that you need to take. However, there are some new processes, and more importantly, there will be some new people perhaps. And it's all going to be complicated by the fact that you might be what we call a dual stack or store in a store. Store in a store. You might be operating with a store in a store model. So it's probably a good idea that we need to make sure we're all on the same page. So within this checklist, it's really broken down into a couple of sections. First, there's time of day. So there's certain things you're going to do that you'll do prior to the store opening. There's certain things you'll do during business hours. And there's other things that you'll do after the store has closed. It's then also split further into categories for operational ready, sales floor ready, and customer ready. So you're going to have one of these checklists, and I would recommend printing these in advance for each day. So you're going to be filling out your daily paperwork, your daily checklist, and you're going to be filing this worksheet with your daily checklist. Now, as part of the checklist, I know when I worked in the stores, one of the first things that you always do as part of a checklist is you start counting cash. So I want to review with you some of the cash handling procedures and best practices that we have. Now, first and foremost, our cash handling procedures are designed to ensure that you can operate and open and close your stores efficiently. They're also there to help us prevent fraud and theft. And lastly, the ways that we're going to operate with our cash is going to be all with safety and security in mind. So as I go through these different sections, especially around cash, I really want you to pay close attention to what's staying the same and what's going to be different. I think that will help you feel comfortable in some ways, and then it'll give you at least guidance on what you need to be focusing on to feel more comfortable as you make this change and we approach day one. So let's start off with till funds and safe change. What's the same? Well, really, for most of us, there shouldn't be a change to the amounts that you will be using. For your tills, that's $150 per till, and your safe funds will typically be $500. Now, it might be different based on like a special request from Treasury or something, but otherwise, $150 for the tills and $500 for safe shouldn't be much of a change. Now, there is one thing that's a little different on here that you may not have heard of before. It's called DTS. It's one of those TLAs that we use at T-Mobile. We call those three-letter acronyms. That's probably likely new to you. We'll talk more about that one in just a moment. One thing that is going to be different, it's a kind of a big change, is that you will now create 2 deposits each night, one for each stack. So when I say stack, I mean anything having to do with Sprint is one stack, and anything having to do with T-Mobile is the other stack. So the big thing is you want to be sure to complete the closing of the stacks one at a time to eliminate mistakes. You don't want to be trying to count cash for one stack and then count cash for a second stack at the same time. It's just going to muddy the waters and make life a little bit more difficult than it needs to be. Now, as you're taking all that cash throughout the day, you may have to do a cash drop or a cash pull. You might even have called it a cash pickup, I think is what it actually says in RMS when you do one. That's more or less business as usual, but I will say one key change is that your store will have a cash drop lockbox installed. This lockbox will be used only for T-Mobile stack cash drops or cash pulls. So that's one thing that's different. That lockbox is only going to be used for the T-Mobile stack. Now with 2 deposits, it's going to change the way we do our armored car service a little bit. You'll now have 2 separate armored car logs to track the deposits for each stack. Now the good news is that you'll only have one armored car service picking up both stacks. So on top of that, you'll have these handy dandy magenta deposit stickers delivered to your stores. And those are to be applied to any deposits that fall in the T-Mobile stack. That'll help you better delineate when that armored car service comes to pick up and you're sorting all your deposits. It'll help you better separate those for that armored car service to make that experience quick. And I like to point that out because if you ever have to give the armored car service your deposits, it can take you away from what's happening on the sales floor, right? You're not coaching your team. Maybe you're in the middle of helping a customer and you have to excuse yourself to help that armored car service. This is one of those things that maybe takes a little bit of time on the front end, but it will save me some valuable time on the back end. Now, on the topic of deposits, we have to talk about DTS. Now, that doesn't stand for down to sell. It actually stands for deposit tracking software. So this is where you will enter any safe and till fund amounts as well as any deposits that you make for that day. So you'll enter that all into DTS night. Now this software will, you'll log in and each store will be issued one login. So you'll have the same username and password for anybody that is working in that management role in your store. When you create deposits, you'll select the appropriate stack before you begin. So you'll be able to highlight whether that's from the T-Mobile stack or the Sprint stack when you're entering those deposits. It's also the place that you will use to enter any details or notes that surround any variances you might have. If there's any money missing, this is where you can kind of document what kind of research you've done and any notes that you need to provide. Now, one thing that I will point out is it says there could be no cash transactions on a specific stack, meaning you didn't take any cash that day. You do still need to enter a no deposit record in DTS. Let me know in text chat, why do you think we would still want to put a no deposit record in DTS? For our records, to keep track of all the deposits, audit compliance. There's a lot of things that auditors tell you to do, right? because it's about mitigating risk, but it really is just generally good bookkeeping. What we're going to talk about today is a lot of, habits that we want to create. And just if I weren't making those deposit entries every day, I might forget to do it on a day where I actually have a deposit. So we want to make sure that we're really training our brains to be successful. One way that things are going to change for us, and thank you for all the comments in the text chat, I appreciate that. One thing that's going to be a change for us is the way we handle any change orders. So there is a specific process for requesting change orders. And you'll actually submit an offsetting deposit for any change orders that are delivered. So one of the big differences for us is that when you receive a change order, it's going to be stored in the safe until we close. So we're not going to break open that change order until after the store's closed because it's a safety and security. At that time, you will verify the funds and you're going to create a separate deposit to offset the change order that was received and submit that entry into DTS, the deposit tracking software. So if you could, do me a favor, I'm going to ask you to put this in your notes. I want you to write down this document number, 418049. Put that into your notes because there's more details on that process, on that document. And some of you may have access to C2. Some of you may not yet, but you all will eventually if you don't. And C2 is the T-Mobile equivalent of iConnect, more or less. And within the search function of C2, you can go up to the search. You can just type that doc number directly in, and it will take you to that document. You can bookmark it from there. You can follow it. So anytime there's updates that are posted. So you'll see some document numbers throughout the day. I just wanted to point out, because I think that's our first one. That's our first document number. Now, one thing that is also different that came up on our first session was you don't actually make a deposit for a change order until after you've received it. So you're not going to be doing this even exchange with your armored car service when they drop off your change, where you give them the deposit and then they give you the change order. You're going to take that change order, hold it till the end of the night. You're going to count all the funds in there, and then you're going to submit a deposit for that amount, and you're going to record it in DTS. So I hope that clears up some of the confusion that you might have, but we will definitely give our SMEs a chance to answer or address any of the themes that are coming through in the Q&A pod. Before we do that, though, let's just take a look at a couple of tips for best practices around handling cash. So one, cash is never counted on the sales floor. Let me repeat. Cash is never counted on the sales floor. You should open a till for each stack every day. But again, we don't want to count cash on the sales floor. Now, I did lie. There is one exception, I guess. It is permissible to count cash drops or cash pulls on the sales floor. But other than that, cash is never counted on sales floor. So another tip, one thing that's going to be really different for us, put your question. I saw it come through chat. Do me a favor, if you can, put it in Q&A so we can hit it at the end of this section. One thing that is going to be a change for us is you can wave bye-bye to the store daily cash worksheet that we've been using. That's that sheet that we use to record our safe count for open and close and all the till amounts, and then we put our deposits on that. That's going bye-bye. That's going to be a big change for how we do our paperwork at the end of the night. So what is going to be new about it is we're going to start using either a cash counter, which I don't know how many of us will have cash counters in the store because you can put in your cash count amounts and then it prints out a receipt and you can retain that for your paperwork. Most of us, I would imagine, are going to be using a manual cash count form. You're going to use this to account for all the store's cash at opening and again at closing. The key with this is how we kind of document it and retain it. So the manual cash count form will be signed by 2 employees, and we use it at open and close. So you'll have 2 of those forms printed per day, signed by 2 employees per day. Now, this next section may not apply to a whole host of us in here, maybe a few, have an APC in their store, that automatic payment center. The good news is if you do, it's business as usual. You're going to just combine the APC deposit with your legacy Sprint Stack deposit. Now, what might be new for some, and it's probably not too new, but some of us might even be new to the Sprint Select world, so it could be, I guess, is that with tills are now being shared, you'll never close down your till at the end of your shift unless you're closing the store. So if you're an opener, your store coworkers will close your till when you leave for the day. So let me just back up and rephrase that. If I open, say I work a 9:30 shift to 6 p.m. and our store closes at 8 p.m., I'm not going to actually count down my drawer when I leave at 6 p.m. It was a good day. I didn't have a customer right at the end, right? I was able to get out of there and go home. I know that doesn't happen frequently, but that's a good thing. You're usually making money when that happens. But I get to, at 6 p.m., I clock out, I leave for the day. I don't close down my till. I don't count it down or anything like that, because it kind of goes back to, we don't want to ever count cash on the sales floor. We don't want to open a till unnecessarily. It's all about safety and security. So your peers will actually count down and close that drawer after all the customers have left for the day. So that's one thing that if you're not doing it today, that's going to be a change. Now this one is a little bit more detailed, but if you complete cash returns on your till, so we start at $150, and then a customer maybe we need to process a return for a customer, and we return that money via cash, and now I only have, let's say, $140 in my drawer. When that happens, I'm going to close my till at the $140. Now, when the floats open the next day, our goal is going to be to complete some cash transactions on that till to bring the funds back above. So we want to make sure that we're back over 150. So this might be, some of this stuff is kind of fast changing, and I'll maybe turn it over to the SMEs here in just a moment. They can maybe color in the detail on it. But I will say, if this is a situation and I close my till, or I close a till as a closer at $140, and we know that it doesn't have $150 for tomorrow, what should I do to make sure that we take cash on that drawer the next day? Maybe I'm not the one working. What kinds of best practices would you all employ to make sure that the rest of your team knows that? Brandon said it. Communicate. Yeah, and I will say that kind of goes for anything in ops. We want to make sure that we communicate with our team, because you can be fantastic with ops. You can be 100% across the board on everything. All it takes is one person who's not to kind of submarine your efforts. So I see group text, whatever it is, just do what you can to communicate. The big thing is any document or any variances need to be documented in DTS. Now, both Sprint and the T-Mobile stack will accept the same payment tenders. That means there's no more checks. So no business checks, no personal checks. Customers will no longer be able to write a check in our store. There is a small exception. If you're a store that has an APC, they can make a bill payment with a check via the APC. Via the APC. As I recall, it does have to, the checking account has to be registered on Sprint.com or with customer finance so that they'll actually accept the check as a payment on the APC. If it's never been registered before and they're just trying to use it for the first time, it will not accept it. But one thing I want to point out here, and we'll get to this in our third session. Emilio said he didn't even know we took checks. Good, we don't. So nothing's changed for you, right? But one thing I do like to point out is for some customers, it may be a change. And we're going to show how great we are in these types of moments. When a customer is used to doing something a certain way, and then we no longer say that way works. So we're going to get into the uncarrier experience and some of the ways that we can make these situations better for customers, but it really is going to boil down to being empathetic with customers. I know I don't write a ton of checks. I try to avoid it like the plague, but if I do have to write a check, sometimes people just feel better about doing it that way, doing business that way. So I mentioned, I like to take notes and do handwritten notes. That's not for everybody, right? But if somebody told me I couldn't, I wouldn't be so happy about it. So we got to think about how, as professionals, we're going to lead our teams through these types of conversations. Are they going to just make customers feel silly and antiquated for writing a check? Or are they going to understand where they're coming from and try and focus on the solutions that we do have and setting them up for success long term? So before we move out of the topic of cash, I would like to maybe open it up to our SMEs to maybe address any of the questions that have been popping into Q&A or to color in any of the details. So if you'd like, you can come to the mic.
Yep, this is Marlena. I'll take a couple of questions, and then I don't know, Heath, if your microphone is working, you can certainly chime in because he and I have been working on all this stuff. So in terms of the amount of cash, we've gotten a couple of questions on that. There will be 150 in each till. When we get to day one, there should be if you're a Legacy Sprint dealer door, you should have one Sprint till and one T-Mobile till. So it would be $300 between the two of those, and then $500 in the safe. We'll have an exercise closer to day one to get that extra till funded to the 150, which will involve shorting some deposits. So we had a few questions about that. Some questions about the change order process. It is a little bit different than what Legacy Sprint stores are used to, where you will request the change in DTS, you will get the change from your courier, and then you will prepare the offsetting deposit in DTS and put it in your safe as a separate deposit for the next time your courier comes. I think those were the big things I saw. I don't know if any of the other SMEs saw anything else that we need to call out while we're on this section.
I'm worried about Heath. I just want to make sure he's okay. Did you get your mic situated, Heath, in case we need you later?
Maybe not.
Fair enough. Okay.
There were some questions about TellerMate, so I just wanted to address that. If your location has a cash scale, then you would use the cash scale to count your cash. If your location does not have a cash scale, you will use that manual cash counter form. I can't exactly remember what we called it, but you would use that form to record the count of your cash, both in the morning and after close.
Awesome. Any other last thoughts or questions that you think we need to?
I think we're good for now.
Perfect. Marlena, thank you.
Sure.
She's awesome, folks. Give her some love in the text chat. So we covered cash, and we really want to make sure that we understand how to manage and organize our paperwork. So we talked a lot about deposits and how we're going to handle the cash for the respective stacks. Well, how are we going to document it? And I mentioned it earlier, but our brains truly do love routine. When we follow processes in the same order every day, we remember the steps and all the associated tasks and requirements. And over time, a positive habit is created. So I'm going to walk you through this following graphic here, and this is really going to be what it's going to look like for closing your stores. So this is the flow. So I will say, feel free to take a photo, screenshot if you're on a mobile device, if it's easy. I just want you to have this flow because I want you to understand what you should be doing, what that habit should look like for you. You're going to start off by closing your T-Mobile stack first. You'll begin balancing your T-Mobile funds for the next day. You'll count your deposit. From there, you'll move over to the Sprint stack. And that's just business as usual, going through RMS, again, making sure your tills are set up for the next day, properly changed out, and then you're going to count your Sprint deposit. So you're going to start with the T-Mobile stack and end with your legacy Sprint stack. Now, I know for the Sprint stack stuff, it's not really new, but we'll get into a little bit more detail on the T-Mobile stack stuff throughout today. Now let's take a look at that paperwork and how it should look as we're kind of going through. You're going to start off, well, first of all, you'll notice on the left-hand side, you have your Sprint stack. So in this manila folder, you can see the tab over here. On the left-hand side every night, you're going to staple your Sprint paperwork. On the right-hand side, you'll staple your T-Mobile stack paperwork. Let's take a look at this in just a little bit more detail. For step one, this is where you will staple a copy of the DTS, this is where you will staple the opening and closing cash counter receipts. So you'll staple them to the bottom right corner of the T-Mobile stack side. Now, if you don't have that cash counter or that scale that Marlena alluded to, we have some steps for you, so stay tuned. So step one may be kind of optional depending on your setup. Section 2 for the respective stacks is where you will staple a copy of the DTS deposit slip and the deposit bag tag, right? It's that tag you tear off of your deposit bag. They get stapled in the bottom right-hand corner of the folder on each side. I'm going to try and move slowly. I feel like this morning when I went through that, I went a little too fast. I want to give you a chance to maybe snap a photo if you need to. Now, in spot 3, this is for your legacy Sprint stack. It's where you will staple all of the closing reports for your nightly paperwork. So this will include your float balancing report and cash drawer balancing report, which there's one per till, your bank deposit summary, your end of day summary, if you have an APC, your APC deposit report, and then any types of manual exceptions that need to be documented. So any exceptions like voids, if you did a paid in or paid out, maybe you did a cash pickup and it, or a pull and it printed that receipt, you can staple those in spot 3. For the T-Mobile stack, spot 3 is going to be used for something similar, but it's just going to be a little bit different what's there because it's going to be the closing paperwork for your T-Mobile stack. So that'll include a couple of daily reports, the register summary listing report, the handset and contract report, payment listing report, and then you'll have your price override report, any reprinted receipt or no sale reports, your return reports, your post-void reports, and then your systematic post-void reports. There's quite a bit of information in there, but a couple of them, just make sure you have the receipts attached for those types of things. Now, spot 4 for both stacks, it's a special spot. And I really, truly hope you'll never have to use it. It's where you're actually going to staple any manual sales receipts and transaction logs if your stores experience any system downtime. So I hope you never have to use it. But you're going to staple that on the left-hand side of the respective stack. So Sprint over here on the left, T-Mobile on the left inside here, close to the binding. In spot 5, it only shows 2 pieces of paper over here, but in actuality, you could actually have 3 pages for each page, or excuse me, for each day. These won't be stapled. They're just going to be sandwiched right in the middle between the 2 stacks paperwork. But these 3 sheets consist of a daily checklist, that store opening and closing checklist that I showed you really at the top of the training, and then your manual cash count forms. So if you don't have that cash counter that you're stapling in spot 1, you're going to put the 2 copies of the manual cash count form there. So if you have that manual cash, or if you have a cash counter, you won't need those forms. So wherever you order your office supplies today, I saw a question come in, where do you find this big folder? It's just a manila folder. So, you're going to have your 8.5 by 11 papers on the right and on the left, and then a couple of things stapled. It should all fit in a traditional manila folder. Now, any additional paperwork will be filed separately. So you may be using Iron Mountain to maintain some of that paperwork, but things like documents for sole proprietors, maybe using their ID, One thing it points out are wet ink documents. So anything that a customer had to physically sign that we didn't capture their signature digitally, maybe during system downtimes or something like that, we're going to make sure we store those things separately. They're not going to go in with our nightly paperwork. Now, I know we covered a lot of information, and if you haven't put any questions about the paperwork in the Q&A pod, please make sure you do, because I would want to point out one thing that's going to be huge for supporting you in really all of the operational processes, but it's the standard operating procedures landing page. On C2, there's this document number, 419, that's my hometown, Toledo, Ohio, and 305, that's Pitbull's hometown, Miami, Florida. 419 305. Save that document number. And thank you, Alicia. I see it in text chat there. The SOP landing page is going to be your one-stop shop for a lot of these materials. So I do want to ask for our SMEs that are on the line, is there anything that you would add to the daily paperwork section or any questions that came through that you'd like to address?
The only thing I will just reinforce is that the expectation is that there is a daily file per day that will be kept on site and house all the daily paperwork, like Andy reviewed, for 90 days. There will be some paperwork that will be retained longer than that, and that was the entire Iron Mountain wet ink conversation that we had earlier. So there are some documents in C2, and I think most stuff will be either available to be accessed through iConnect or C2, but we'll walk you through kind of how to organize file cabinets and that kind of thing.
Awesome. Thanks, Marlene. I appreciate it.
Sure.
So paperwork and standardizing that, having the procedures in place and having a habit and a system is really important. Those SOPs are also very important to the look and feel of our store. So let's talk a little bit about store merchandising. Now, as most of you know, there are many online training resources available. If you or your team wants to learn more or, quite frankly, just need a refresher on a topic, as we go through the lessons, I want you to be sure to write down any resources that you find so that you can share them with your teams when they need them. Now, within STAR or LMS, or maybe even Cornerstone, once you have access to it, you can access the merchandising content for the respective brands. So My Merch is what we will use for T-Mobile brand planogram and merchandising. There is a WBT, a web-based training available for that. So if you want to learn more about merchandising aspects on the T-Mobile brand, that's where I'm going to direct you. The SSE or Sprint Store Experience is the exact same thing, but just on the Sprint brand. And there's also a web-based training for that. So do me a favor, snap a photo if you need to, just so you know what to go search for in Cornerstone, STAR, LMS, whichever learning management system you're accessing today or in the future. So we want to be sure that our stores look good. We've got all these accessories, spread out throughout our store. We get these devices on display looking good. Let's talk about how we're going to manage that inventory throughout the day. Now, effectively managing inventory is going to give our teams the right devices and accessories for our customers when they ask for them. That's a fact. Now, from the digital learning, you as leaders probably know that when we have two brands in the store, our inventory will add new processes and workflows that we need to consider. So I want to reiterate a couple of terms that we talked about in the digital learning, but we really need to make sure we understand them before we kind of go forward, because we can get a little bit lost in the sauce, so to speak, if we don't. So first is a stack. A stack is the systems and tools in your store to help you manage your inventory and your sales. So stack could refer to cash, like we talked about earlier, right? It comes from the T-Mobile stack. It could refer to physical inventory like a device or an accessory. And it also could even refer to technology, the types of point of sale system that we're using or how we're receiving inventory, what software or whatnot are we using for that. So a stack is kind of all encompassing of that. So when you see dual stack, that just means that you have the technology and the inventory and all those things in your store to service both brands. Because we want to be able to say, yes, I can help you to any customers. So your stores, I think the majority of our stores will be branded as a dual stack store. Now, there are a few exceptions. There might be a few single stack stores that typically applies to like a kiosk or maybe like a T-Mobile truck or something like that. But as we get into inventory, it's just important because we're going to be using that stack term quite a bit. And I just want to make sure that you all know what I'm talking about when we get there. So with two brands, we have inventory coming really from two distribution centers. So depending on what brand that inventory comes from, we need to be able to distinguish where that inventory should be stored and how we should receive it. So the really simple way to do it is you're going to get a shipment from UPS and you're going to see your labels. So let me start over here on the right, actually. On the right, you'll see SPCS. That's what it says whenever you receive, or it should say as a Sprint Select store, what you see when you're receiving inventory from the warehouse. It'll say it's addressed to SPCS. For anything T-Mobile brand, you'll see a TM in front of the address. So it's just important to pay attention to which stack that inventory shipment's coming from and going into as you receive it. From there, you're going to utilize your existing inventory safes for both inventory stacks. So you're not going to have this separate safe for T-Mobile inventory and a separate safe or cage for Sprint inventory. You just need to make sure that the shelves in the inventory safe are labeled appropriately. And we'll get into that here in more detail. The big thing is when we receive inventory, or receiving inventory at Sprint, it's really business as usual. You can receive it anytime during the day. Really, honestly, the sooner the better. But you always want to do it off the sales floor, back of house. And when you receive your T-Mobile inventory, same idea. You're not going to be using RMS to receive the T-Mobile inventory. You're going to be receiving T-Mobile inventory via T-Mobile. And we'll talk more about what T-Mobile is later today. The big thing is we just want to receive inventory off the sales floor. Why do we want to receive inventory off the sales floor? Let me know in text chat. What do you think is the reasoning behind wanting to receive inventory off the sales floor? Safety, avoid theft. Yeah, we don't want to tempt anybody. Don't dangle it out there and then get mad when somebody takes it, because that's what happens. And it's happened to the best of us. That's why we're going over this stuff now. If you're not receiving your inventory off the sales floor, you've got to find a way to do that. Secure it until you can. But as we receive it, it's really going to be important that we have an organized safe. What do you think is the goal in organizing a safe? Why do we want our safe to be organized? Let me know in text chat. You can find items easier. I saw something about aged inventory. That was an advanced level comment. I like that. You can avoid mistakes. It's hard to sell when you can't find it. I love it. Yeah, lots of good stuff. And we're actually going to hit you. You wouldn't believe how hard our operations and IT teams have been working to make this process as seamless as we can. So I'm going to show you what an inventory safe should look like from an organization standpoint. And then we'll get into a little bit more detail about how that inventory will move in and out of our stores. So on the right-hand side here, that's a legacy T-Mobile example. So we're not even going to look at that example because we're legacy Sprint for this audience. So we're going to look at this example on the left here. You want to keep your legacy stack inventory as physically separated as possible from the secondary stack. We don't want to mix those up when we can avoid that at all costs. Now, your legacy stack inventory should be placed where Beyonce places My Love, on top. You're going to put your legacy stack, meaning your Sprint inventory, at the top of the inventory safe. So that means T-Mobile inventory will be on the bottom, right? Now, we also will use some labels to help identify where this inventory belongs a little bit further. So we will use TM and a label maker to identify any T-Mobile devices, and we'll use SP on a label maker for any Sprint devices. We'll follow that prefix, TM or SP, with the model, memory, variant, color, and the last 4 characters of the SKU number. We'll talk a little bit more about day stock, how much we have on hand, maybe in a time delay safe and things like that. But I do want to point out, TM and SP may not be the only prefix you put on there, because you may also have a device that's called a unified device. And in those instances, you'll put a U prior to the SP or the TM. Now, you notice this is like an iPhone XR, 64 gig gray. That device may not be unified. So it's just used as an example in this training, so don't necessarily take that to the bank. But I will show you, because that was one of the big questions I had. It's like, which devices are unified? So don't worry, I will definitely get there for you. But before we get into which devices are and which devices aren't, I think we should just talk about that difference. So one thing you may remember from that digital learning is that we did talk about unified devices, and the unified devices make up the majority. Actually, about 95% of your devices on day one will be unified devices. And what that really means is that they're designed to work on either the Sprint or T-Mobile network. They just need to have the appropriate SIM installed. Now, some of the Android devices may require a firmware or software update as well to make sure that that customer is set up for success. Now, in order to make sure a customer is set up for success and I sell them a unified device, how will I know that they're set up for success before they leave? What kinds of things would you do? Let me know in chat. I see make test calls. That's half of it. And then somebody else put it, test the internet too. Make sure you're not on Wi-Fi when you do, right? But I want to make a test call and I want to test that internet. I want to make sure that device is fully provisioned and it's functioning on LTE or 5G. And I want to make sure it's making calls. And if it's not, then we know that we might have to do some more troubleshooting. Maybe it's one of those Android devices that needs a firmware update. Maybe I haven't put the proper SIM in there. We want to make sure that we're setting customers up for success when they leave the store, because nothing worse could happen than them leave, their phone not work, and then they have to make the trip back. It's not going to be too much of an uncarrier experience in that situation. So unified devices are the awesome ones. It's the majority of our phones, like I said, 95%. And they're going to work regardless of what brand the customer is shopping for. We just have to make sure we have that SIM card and or that software update for those Android devices. Now, non-unified devices are locked down to the network from which they originate. So only about 5% of our devices are going to fall into that category at day one. But I will say, as new products are launched and things like that, we're really looking to make sure everything's unified as we go forward. So I do want to point out, I'll point it out here. It's also a couple other places, but there is a grab-and-go document on C2 for unified devices. And Alicia, if you wouldn't mind helping me out if you're free, to put that number, that doc number in text chat for unified devices, 459688. That is going to be an awesome resource for you, because not only does it go into some detail about what's needed and how these devices need to be provisioned, but at the bottom of that document, there should be an attachment that has a list of which devices are unified and non-unified. So it should help maybe organizing and labeling these products effectively. A lot easier to do. So before I move on to some of the processes within our systems and how we're going to move inventory, I'd like to ask our SMEs, is there anything about inventory safe organization, unified versus non-unified devices, any questions that came through you'd like to address, or Any maybe details you want to color in?
Yes. Let me just address some of there's a question about physical inventory count and unified devices. So unified devices are still in a specific stack when you receive them. They are in the inventory of the stack. The unified device, what that allows you to do is to be able to do the inter-stack transfer. So when you get to a physical count, it's important that you know what stack that device is in, which is why the safe organization and labeling your safe is so important so that you're counting the device in the right system.
Thank you, Marlena. That's a great call out. And I will say she did kind of open the door to probably more questions that some of you have, like he's talking about inter-stack transfer.
Right, I know we probably haven't gotten to that yet, and we will.
and inventory counts. So if your ears perked up and you started wagging your tail because you were excited about some of the stuff she said, don't worry, we're going to get there. So we are going to talk about what that inter-stack transfer process is. That's really cool. That's one of the things I think that our support team worked really hard to make sure we're set up for success on. We'll also talk about inventory counts in a little bit more detail too. So great question. Marlena, was there anything else that you saw that you'd like to address?
I don't think so.
Okay. Awesome. Well, folks, keep the questions rolling in because that's how you're going to get the most out of this. And if you're like me, I have a ton of questions, everything I do. So it's a good thing. We want to make sure that you feel good and confident. So we've got this inventory received, right? We realized maybe what stack it belongs into, and it's sorted where it should be. We got the legacy stack on top, like Beyonce, or like my love. Beyonce keeps it up there too. We've got the inventory situated, but now we got to talk about what's going to happen when we start to move this inventory out of our stores through a sale. And I just want to click through and give you guys some high-level overviews of what we're looking at. But regardless of the customer, if they walk in and they're shopping for the Magenta brand, we're a Magenta store. We can help them. We have our Magenta point of sale. They walk out, happy Magenta customer. If they're walking in shopping the Yellow brand, they walk into a Magenta store. We've got the devices for them. We ring them out through the appropriate point of sale. Customer walks out a happy Legacy Yellow customer. So that's kind of high level, but I want to go into a little bit more detail. Remember, regardless of what brand the customer is shopping for, Magenta, maybe something yellow, we just want to be able to say, yes, we can help you. So from there, when a customer is looking at maybe a unified device, the mobile expert can grab the product that best fits the customer, regardless of the stack that the product lives in. Now, if the customer asks for a device that's a non-unified device, the mobile expert can grab the product out of the inventory stack associated with the customer's network. So regardless of what brand they're on, if it's a unified device, I can use it, okay? If a customer wants an accessory, this is a big one for me. The mobile expert can grab the requested accessory. Any accessory will work as long as it works for the device you're setting the customer up with. All newly fulfilled accessories will originate in the T-Mobile stack, and I know we talked about this a little bit on the first call. They may actually have a process in place to shift all accessories to the T-Mobile stack prior to day one, but Marlene, I don't know if you can comment on that maybe now. Might be putting you on the spot a little.
Can you say it again?
Oh, sorry, yeah. You mentioned in the AM session that newly fulfilled accessories might come to T-Mobile, or we might move existing stuff over to the T-Mobile stack.
By the time we get to day one, there should be the accessories in dealer stores will be T-Mobile. So there won't be a lot of accessories that we'll have to, shouldn't be really any that we'll have to receive into the Sprint stack.
Perfect. Thank you. Sorry, I know I put you on the spot there.
No worries.
I just got to make sure everyone's, on their toes, right? But I will say, this is where it gets really cool for me. So I really want you all to dial in. Hopefully you've been dialed in the whole time, but right here is going to be important because this is where it could get confusing otherwise. So when a unified device from one stack is sold out in the point of sale system of the opposite stack, it will automatically transfer. We call this an interstack transfer. So she mentioned that, Marlena mentioned that earlier, interstack transfer. That means if I grab a unified device from the TMO stack, but I sell it out of RMS, it will automatically transfer the device in the inventory system at the point of sale. And woohoo is right. That means you don't have to move things around in RMS back office or on your TMO device. This is where our ops and IT team, this is one of many areas that they worked hard to make this happen for us. So give them some kudos in the chat. Our customers won't be left standing around. You won't be left, or you won't be asked by your mobile experts to, hey, can you move this device out of back office into T-Mobile stack? They can just go sell it out. And we'll be able to deliver that Un-carrier experience that all of our customers have come to know and love. So in this type of scenario, all you'll have to do is grab the appropriate SIM. For some of those Android devices, you may need to update the device's firmware before it will activate, but otherwise you're good to go. Now, some good news is all accessories, if they aren't by some act of God, I suppose, in just the T-Mobile stack, they're interstack transfer eligible too. That means if there's any accessory in the Sprint stack that you need to sell out, regardless of what point of sale system you sell it out, it will move out of your inventory like it should. So accessories are interstack transfer eligible as well. Does that make you all feel better about what we're embarking on day one? Because I know it makes me feel confident. If I was a manager, I would feel great. I love it. Now, there are times when we maybe aren't doing these interstack transfers because we're not talking about a unified device. So non-unified devices will be locked to the associated point of sale system. So there's not going to be that interstack transfer allowed. The system will prevent you from selling out a non-unified device to a customer across stacks. Now, if you don't have that particular device in stock, you can request one via store-to-store transfer or place a ship-to order to fulfill your customer's request. So I will open it up to our SMEs. We've heard from Marlena a lot. I know that there's a couple others that are here, but I just didn't know if there's any other questions coming through, maybe about the interstack transfer process or maybe managing some of that inventory. We still have physical inventory to go. We're going to talk about returns first. But Marlena, was there anything that you would like to call out, or maybe any other SMEs for that matter?
Sorry, not yet.
Okay, perfect. Keep the questions coming, folks. We still have our Q&A at the end. We probably won't need as much time for that, but because we're kind of taking these breaks throughout, so it's going to work out really nicely. But the goal is we sold that out, interstack transfer or not, right? The customer leaves the store with a device that simply fits their needs. Now, sometimes we did everything right when we rang the customer out for their new device, but maybe, just maybe, we didn't find the best fit for our customer. And they're going to need to return or exchange it. So let's take a quick peek at how returns and exchanges will be handled. This is kind of a high-level overview. And I will say we have a path for Sprint purchases. We have a path for Magenta purchases, T-Mobile purchases. But it's kind of, I always think of it like that saying about Las Vegas, right? It's like what happens in Vegas stays in Vegas. So products sold from the T-Mobile point of sale are returned via the T-Mobile point of sale. Products sold from the Sprint point of sale are going to be returned via the Sprint point of sale. Whatever happens in that stack stays in that stack, so to speak. Now, based on the point of sale, the return will generate labels. Now, what's new for you, down at the bottom, this isn't too new. that's what it looks like when you do a device return today. You get that little traveler's receipt that come along with it. What's going to be different for you is that you'll have two different types of return receipts that will print out by the TMO stack of systems. The top one here is an example of a serialized return, so a device return that has an ESN or IMEI associated with it. You'll also see these accessory return labels generated. So these are called a license plate, and you might actually remember these from your digital learning paths because we did mention them in there. But anytime an accessory is returned via the T-Mobile point of sale, it will generate a license plate that you attach to that returned item. So that's one thing that I will call out. It's a little different than how we're doing business today. This one here is pretty big. You're going to have a minimum of at least 2 bins, one for T-Mobile returns and one for Sprint returns. Why do you think it's going to be important that I separate these returns, folks? Let me know in text chat. Why should I have a separate bin for each? Correct warehouses. You guys are on it. It's you guys rock. I love it. Yeah, we want to make sure they get back to the right place. So the way that we return inventory on the T-Mobile stack is we use this thing called T-Mo. We'll talk about this awesome device later today. Don't worry. So we'll give you some more detail. But all the T-Mobile returns are returned to the distribution center 45, DC 45, using T-Mo. Any of the Sprint returns are going to be shipped to Brightstar, and we're going to use RMS and the Brightstar portal. So that's pretty much business as usual. Now, we do have some checks and balances in place to make sure, or to maybe reduce the likelihood of a serialized product being shipped to the incorrect return center, but maybe not the case for accessories. So I want to make sure that we understand how this can really get off the rails for us if we're not doing things properly. We don't have the processes in place. So any devices that are shipped to the wrong return center, they will make attempts to cross-dock or to send those devices to the appropriate return warehouse. And that way you'll get credit for the returns. I will say on accessories, anything that's sent to the wrong return center will remain in place, and you will have to take a shrink, on those items. Now, one thing that's a little different, anything from the T-Mobile stack, any returns that don't make it back to the distribution center, they will get pushed back into your store's inventory. So what do you think that means? If I'm getting all this stuff pushed back into my inventory, and I go to count, and I have all this stuff here that I sent out, it's not here, I'm going to be adjusting that out of my inventory. I'm going to be shrinking it. I'm going to be eliminating that from my inventory. That's going to be a headache. You're going to be doing a lot of research. So when we make errors during our return process, they are very likely to snowball. You might want to drive to the distribution center and help find it because it's going to be a headache. That might be easier, right? So when these things start to snowball, it's just not going to be, you won't be able to hide from these errors, especially when you start finding them doing your physical inventory counts. So to reiterate, just to summarize, you want to make sure that regardless of your store type, dual stack or not, you're just sending the stuff back in the right place, okay? So you're going to return the products to the stack from which they were sold. It's that Vegas rule I told you about. You're going to place the products in the correct return bin. We're going to have a separate bin for T-Mo stuff and a separate bin for Sprint stuff. And I will say, you may need more than one bin, but you're going to have at a minimum at least one return bin. And then from there, take the time, accurately ship them to the appropriate distribution center. If we do that right, we should make our inventory counts a lot better. So we'll review some tips now just to get the best out of our physical inventory counts. Now, a couple of things to do before we start our count. We want to make sure we're setting ourselves up for success. And the first thing you're going to want to do as a dual stack store is you want to be sure to separate your inventory by stack. Now this will potentially only really apply to accessories that are maybe out on the sales floor. And I'm hopeful that we will have everything in the T-Mobile stack from an accessory standpoint. But if for some reason we don't, and I only say that because the content that I was given, it's changing so fast. This maybe hadn't been updated yet, but the accessories, if you have Sprint accessories out on the sales floor and T-Mobile accessories out on the sales floor, you just need to make sure you're scanning the appropriate stack, scanning them in the appropriate stack. Your devices should already be separated, right? So in your safe, we're keeping our legacy devices on top. The T-Mobile devices are going to be on the bottom. Other than that, from a pre-inventory count activity perspective, you really just want to make sure you do some of the basics that you're doing today. You're going to ship out all your returns. You also want to make sure that you prep your demo phones to be counted for the respective stacks. When you complete your inventory counts, you will count both stacks on the same day prior to the store opening. Before the store opens. It's not going to be an uncarrier experience if I'm trying to scan and reconcile my inventory while my mobile experts are helping customers and customers are walking in the store. So we want to scan both stacks same day prior to the store opening. From there, you will use the same tools that you have today to research and reconcile your variances. But I will say a quick pro tip. Just pay close attention. If you have any variances between accessories in the respective stacks, you just might have counted one of the items or some of those items in the wrong stack, and it belongs to the other stack's inventory. So, for example, say I have 5 life-proof cases and I scan them all in my T-Mobile stack inventory count, but they actually are in inventory under the Sprint stack. I'm going to show that I'm over 5 on the T-Mobile side, but I'm going to show under 5 on the Sprint stack side. So we want to make sure that we're not just unnecessarily shrinking or overaging items in, even though maybe nothing's really lost. It's a really easy way to amend your count and just eliminate those mistakes. So I know that we stayed pretty high level here, but there's a couple things you can do. You can review some of the information on physical inventory counts on C2. And Alicia, if you'd help me out with the doc number here, 415817 for physical inventory counts for the T-Mobile stack on C2. Now on iConnect, you also have a separate doc number. I don't want to give you the doc number necessarily for this one. I think you all are a little bit more familiar with iConnect, but there are physical inventory count documents there. And if I give you a doc number, I feel like you're going to search for it in C2 and maybe get a little spun around. But I will say, you can also refresh yourself on any of that training in STAR or LMS using that Inventory Operations Integration Edition. There was one that all employees took, regardless of whether they were a leader or not. So that includes you. And then there's that Operations Integration Edition for leaders. So that doc number was 415817. So let's get that into our notes to make sure that we're set up for success. So I know we covered a lot. Before let's go ahead and I want to kick the ball over to our SMEs to maybe color in some of the details and address some of the questions that you guys put into the Q&A pod. So whomever would like to address some of those questions, feel free to come to the mic.
So this is Marlena. One of the questions I want to address is around accessories. So accessories have the same interstack transfer capability that unified devices do. So if a accessory is on the T-Mobile stack and you have a Sprint customer who's buying an accessory, you will just sell it to them and it'll interstack transfer to the right inventory lane on the back end. If that accessory is then returned, it would be returned in the Sprint stack. So where it is sold is where it is returned. There's a couple of questions on that, so I thought I would just address that.
Awesome. No, thank you.
Sure. And I don't know, we have a new SME on Carinoline. I don't know if you wanted to address anything as it relates to counts. I don't think we were getting a lot of questions yet, but I think the things to keep in mind are prep the night before and get it all counted and reconciled before store opens.
Perfect. Yeah, no, I mean, those are best practices. They will never change, regardless of what's going on. Preparation is going to be key. And also just making sure that you get it all done before we unlock the doors for the day, because it's just going to be so much harder. And then if inventory starts moving out of your store, then yeah, all bets are off as to whether or not you can do that effectively. Fantastic. Well, hey, hopefully that means we did a good job, that we didn't have so many questions about it. But I know sometimes it is a situation where we don't know what to ask because we just don't know enough yet. So I really want to encourage you all to make sure you consult the physical inventory count documents, you revisit your web-based training. It's really going to be important for you to be successful. So from there, from there, we do have to talk about those pesky exchanges that might happen from time to time. And it's okay if they happen, quite honestly. But the one thing that's a little different with warranty exchanges is, both Legacy Sprint and T-Mobile teams know their warranty programs, and they know how to assist their customers with claims. But the difference here for us is now both teams need to know both warranty programs in your store. So I want to review these programs kind of at a high level. And we'll start with T-Mobile, and this is largely what will be new for us. So for non-Apple products, T-Mobile customers can file a claim through retail or care. And then customers can go to any retail store to pick up a warranty replacement device, because T-Mobile services in-warranty claims through T-Mobile Supply, and they will ship the devices directly to the store. Where it gets a little bit different is if it's an Apple device. Customers with Apple products should be referred to Apple. Now, when a customer does initiate a claim with Care, for example, on a warranty device, they will actually allow that customer to go, they'll search for stores within a 15-mile radius, and they will allow that customer to visit the store they're choosing within that radius. If there is not a store within that 15-mile radius, the replacement device will be shipped to the customer's home. So the big thing that's different is anything Android is going to be handled in store. Anything Apple will be handled by Apple. That's one real key takeaway. The way we handle on that Sprint is kind of completely different from this. So for Legacy Sprint, take a look at this. They're going to go to those service and repair centers. Whether that, a lot of times at those service and repair centers, they can repair the phone same day by Asurion. Now, should the in-store repair fail, the customer is given a loaner phone, and the original phone is shipped to Asurion for repair. Now, once the phone is repaired, it's shipped back to the retail store for the customer to pick up. And if the phone cannot be repaired, the customer is given a replacement device. And I say given a replacement device, but it may need to be ordered depending on whether or not it's available in the store. So what I will say is Apple customers can go in, they can follow the same process flow. It doesn't matter if it's Android or Apple. Apple customers tend to have a few more options because outside of the SNR stores, they do also have Apple stores or Apple certified repair centers that they can use. And if you didn't know, I guess I'll share with an Apple customer, there is this Apple support app. It's like a little blue icon that you find, but you can find other repair centers. Like I know around here, Best Buy is an authorized repair center, and it keeps their warranties intact and things like that. I did see a question about Sprint Complete, and if they don't have Sprint Complete, it's the same rules that we have today. Until we start to integrate and migrate customers, off of the Sprint brand into the T-Mobile brand, where they'll, maybe be getting the P360 Protection 360 service. It's same rules as today. A fantastic question. So SLR doors, Sprint Legacy repair doors, I'm guessing, is the question before I move on. They're available at sprint.com /store locator. So you can go to the sprint.com website and you can view the different locations, and they will signify whether or not they are service and repair. So I'll ask this, Mies, are there any questions that you've seen come through the Q&A pod around warranty exchanges that you'd like to address?
No, I don't think so. I think everything is in the slides. There are a couple questions. I have seen a couple questions, and I know you said this before. We're sending these slides out, or they'll be available to folks later, right?
Yeah, so our development team is working to get this content to you. So I'm assuming the way it will manifest for you is you'll see it loaded into STAR or LMS or Cornerstone for you to access in a future date. So if you didn't take pictures of some of this stuff or you want to come back to it, definitely there. So we do have some, so we have a question: by warranty, do we mean manufacturer's warranty? Sorry, the question disappeared for me.
Yes, that is what we mean.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, so I missed the second half of the question as another comment came through. Yeah, so yeah, any warranty exchanges will be handled. Manufacturer's warranty will be handled. No, it's all good. Teamwork is making the dream work. So there are some documents, again, that are available for warranty exchanges. Again, a lot of this was covered in the digital learning path. So if you really do have questions about some of these finer points, I would definitely make sure you're reviewing that digital learning path. There are specific modules dedicated to this content. You know, having taken it myself, I can attest. So I do want to do a quick review with you all. So we're going to utilize our text chat here for a quick knowledge check. And I'm going to read aloud a question on the screen, and I want you to put what you think is the correct response, A, B, C, D, or E, in text chat. So what types of inventory can be inter-stack transferred? And note, select all that apply. I see a lot of B's. I'm seeing occasional B and C. B and C. All right, if you put B and C, give yourself a pat on the back because you are correct. That means when I sell out a unified device or an accessory, it doesn't matter what brand customer it's going to or what point of sale system it's going to. I don't have to manage my inventory beyond just ringing that out. Nicely done. For our next question, which of the following statements about warranty claims is not true? This is a little tricky. So pay close attention, but give me an A, B, C, D, or E in the text chat when you think you got the right answer. We're a little bit more all over the map on this one, I see. This one's tricky. I've seen some folks getting it. Definitely a few of you have. For this one, the correct response is D. And the word that makes that not true is for any of our products. There's a certain brand of products for T-Mobile stack that won't be handled in store, and that's those Apple products. We're going to refer the customer to the Apple Store. But one last thing, and then we're going to take a break because you guys have been awesome. And we're doing great on time, believe it or not. We're going to do WooClap for a second time. So let me switch over to WooClap for us. And it froze on me earlier. We'll see if it's still frozen. Might be frozen on me. Let me pause my screen share. See if I can close it out and open it back up. I wish I had some cool technical difficulties music to play for you all. I won't try and sing because that would be brutal for you. All right, let me unpause my screen share here. So you should be able to join the WooClap just like you did before. If you go back to your browser, you can also go to wooclap.com/SORS6PM. So I'm going to move over to a poll. When and how should you receive T-Mobile inventory? Put your answers in chat, and if you're still trying to join, that's okay. I'm going to leave it up for just a minute. Got about 70, 80 responses. We've got some votes coming in. Let me turn them on for you all so that you can see how maybe some of your peers are. Maybe it'll help you along. We're a little bit more closely divided on this one, I will say. But the correct response is number 2. Anytime during the day using T-Mo. The important thing is in back of house. I appreciate maybe where some of us were coming from with number 1, right? We don't want to leave inventory at risk, but if we're doing this back of house, there shouldn't be any customers back there. It's kind of the idea. So we really should be good to go. So with all that said, thank you for the participation in WooClap. I appreciate it. I'm going to stop sharing my screen because I want to set you guys off onto a break and let you guys restore your comfort. So in order to do that, I need to give you some time. So I've got 46 after the hour. Let's make it 57 after. I always like to give you kind of like a bonus minute. So whatever time zone you're in, the clock should say XX 57. And I will see you all back here then. Enjoy your break. Alrighty, folks, welcome back from break. I hope it was fruitful for you. I hope you're comfortable. You got the right amount of caffeine. I tried to drive over to one of those combined KFC, Long John Silver's restaurants because I just couldn't make up my mind. And we've been talking so much about these dual stack, stores. I thought, hey, I'll give it a try myself. And I went over there, and they could not sell me my hush puppies at the KFC counter. I had to walk over to the Long John Silver's counter. So it's not as great as we're going to have it on day one. Jokes aside, I didn't really have time in 10 minutes, 11 minutes to make that trip, if you couldn't tell. But I am really excited about the fact that we will be able to do things so easily in our stores. So instead, I just drank some water. That's what that's what I did. But I hope you enjoyed your break. One of the things that we've talked about throughout the day really is managing our inventory and how that's going to affect the experience. But we're going to talk now about the mobile technology that's in our stores and really how that will affect the experience that folks have. So we're going to start off with the T-Mobile technology stack. And that should make life a little bit easier because that's really the thing that's going to be, I would guess, the most different for us. It's not really staying the same. So we get to focus on that. But mobility is a big piece of it. So how do you think mobile technology makes selling in our stores better for everyone? Let me know in text chat. How do you think selling with mobile technology in our stores makes it a better experience for everyone? Makes you more mobile. That's very on the nose, I see, but I agree. Customer engagement. Consultant. It's fast, efficient, more personal, less wait times. I think you're right. It does make it better for everyone because it gives our retail teams the tools that they need in order to offer our customers a seamless and efficient experience. More importantly, it allows our mobile experts to, and I'll put this in air quotes, make it personal. That may not mean a whole lot to you today, making it personal. But it's going to be a big part of what Alicia is going to walk you through on Wednesday's session when we get into the uncarrier experience model. Because it allows our mobile experts to freely interact with their customers. They don't need to be tied down to a desk or a kiosk or behind a counter. So at T-Mobile, we're about creating a digitally accelerated retail environment aimed to provide innovative technology that helps our teams deliver an uncarrier experience to our customers. So as we move into this dual stack store model, you're going to have the same hardware for the legacy Sprint brand that you have today. There are going to be maybe a couple of tweaks, but on the whole, it's pretty much business as usual. But the T-Mobile stack is really where things are going to get different. So you'll have something called a ReMo device. It's really an iPad, but we call it a ReMo, or retail mobility device. It's basically essentially what we have in our GST iPads, but so much more. Not only can you process transactions anywhere on the sales floor, but you can also stay up to date with the latest information on the hub. You can also review policies on C2, and get this, you can even open and close the store for the T-Mobile stack right from the ReMo device. Now, starting on day one, this is one of those tweaks. You'll be able to access GST on the ReMo device, so there won't be any need to carry two iPads around. That would be kind of weird. Wouldn't you agree? So that's one new piece of hardware that if you don't have in your stores yet, you will by the time day one rolls around. The second device I want to introduce you to is what I like to affectionately call Mr. T-Mo. Mr. T-Mo is your go-to inventory device, and he does pity the fool. But it's really a small handheld device that is stored along with its charging base in the back of house. With built-in scanning, you will use T-Mo for receiving any inventory. You'll count your inventory with it. You'll transfer inventory. You'll process inventory returns. Anything that lives in the T-Mobile stack from an inventory perspective will be managed by that T-Mo device. Back of house, I should say. Front of house, you're going to be using ReMo. The next piece of hardware I want to introduce you to is something called the MPD. It's a mobile payment device. We use that to take those credit card payments for our customers. We're not taking checks anymore, right? So if they're paying with a card, we're going to use the MPD device. And the last piece is the really crucial piece, because this is what's going to make all this stuff kind of hum for us. It's called the health charger. It's going to keep your remote and your mobile payment devices charged and healthy. It will push updates to keep your devices running smoothly. It's also going to check for updates when it's plugged in. And you'll see this neat contraption where it can store actually up to 8 of the remote iPads. That includes the MPD devices that are companion devices to those remote tablets. Now, a couple of things you do want to make sure of is that it's plugged in every night. You also will notice that there are some LED lights when you plug in each remote device, and it will tell you the health status of the remote. Now, I could try and explain what the different color codes mean, but with your remote health charger, there is a quick reference guide, like a little grab and go document that should be included with your health charger that will tell you what the different lights mean when you're plugging in those devices. Now, the big thing is, and this is kind of a pro tip, when you are plugging in those iPads, those remote devices into the health charger, you want to make sure if there's a passcode on the iPad setup that it's unlocked. If it's not unlocked and it's plugged in, it won't receive any of the necessary updates. So using this health charger effectively is going to be really important because it's going to allow your remote devices to be updated and stay charged so that you can stay updated and stay charged and fired up and deliver that exceptional uncarrier experience. So I want to show you some of the resource documents that are going to be available for you. And I want to pause here for a minute so that you can screenshot, take a picture, or make note of the different document ID numbers to help support you with your technology in your store. So you have a document for the Remo hardware overview, for Mr. Timo, and the hardware overview there. Also that health charger. Don't forget, you have the integration hub. You can get to that via iConnect or TNation/C2. That's going to have a lot of the resources that we've talked about today too. So ideally, everything's going to work seamlessly and you won't need to do anything. But what are you going to do? Where are you going to go when your tools aren't working? Well, if you ever have issues, don't worry, we got you covered. First things first, check out those documents that I just shared with you. We always want to check C2 for the most up-to-date and important information. Now, you all troubleshoot devices on a daily basis for our customers, so many of those same principles are going to apply with your Remo devices and others. You want to double-check the power supply. You want to make sure it's actually charging and it's actually turning on. And also, you want to ensure that it's connected to the appropriate Wi-Fi. Now, for any T-Mobile stack issues, so any T-Mobile hardware issues, you're going to submit the issue via the quick ticket tool on Remo. So on the Remo device, you will see a quick ticket tool application, and you can submit any hardware issues that you might have through that. Now, for any Sprint stack issues, you're going to call the T-Mobile service desk, and I'm going to say this number out loud for you. It's 877-878-7326. Again, that number is 877-878-7326. I feel like this is an infomercial, but wait, there's more. Actually, there is more. When you need to replace defective hardware, it can be replaced by the T-Mobile service desk. What's that number, folks? It's 877-878-7326. Now, if you haven't saved that number in your phone, do it now. And if you can help me out, maybe Alicia, just throw that number in text chat so everybody has it as well. Save that number. The good news is if we do ever have defective equipment, we can contact that service desk, and usually within 2 days, we will have a replacement unit shipped to our store. So let's make sure that we have not only the resource docs in our back pocket, but we have things like that number. Because I can tell you from personal experience, I know I can speak for you all. When things go wrong, I don't want to know what I need to do. Like I want to already know who I should be calling, where I can submit those tickets, so I can get back up and running. It's going to impact the customer experience. It's going to impact the morale of my staff in the store. We have to do things to make sure that we're successful. So I'm going to ask that you have those numbers saved so that you don't have to ask somebody else when something goes wrong. So for Legacy Sprint, we're going to utilize that Remo tablet technology for a few key tasks. So one, they're all going to be managed right here on your Remo devices when it comes to any current and new T-Mobile customers, sales or service. We're going to handle them right on our Remo device. This is where it's going to be kind of a key difference. For any Legacy Sprint customers, we can service upgrades and add-alongs, no problem. We're using kind of GST, more or less business as usual. We'll use RMS to maybe tender, set up business or government accounts, process any returns or changes, or do anything with a direct ship. But I want to point out that it says upgrade and add-a-line only. So what that means is if somebody comes in shopping for new cellular service and they don't have Sprint or T-Mobile already, right? Maybe they have AT&T or Verizon. I promised I wasn't going to curse, but I just said two bad words. I apologize. When we set them up from those brands, new accounts will only be activated on the T-Mobile brand. Only activated on the T-Mobile brand. So we're not going to create new accounts under the Sprint brand any longer. So we can grow existing accounts from add-a-line process. We can process those upgrades. That's no problem. But we don't want to have to migrate all those people later. Not to mention, we want them to have access to the full suite of what T-Mobile has to offer right off the get-go. Why would we want to make it any harder on them? So within the dual stack store management, you'll use the Remo device to open and close the T-Mobile stack. I talked about how you don't have to use a computer software to close your store with the T-Mobile stack. You just use Remo. For Sprint, it's going to be business as usual, just using RMS. And then lastly, you have inventory management tools. So you'll use T-Mo and the T-Mo console for the T-Mobile stack. And then for the Sprint stack, you'll use RMS, and maybe occasionally, on a rare occasion, you'll use the T-Mo stack. So that shouldn't be something that's ultra common. But I do want to give our subject matter experts a chance to maybe color in some details and address any questions that you have about some of the technology that's going to be in our store.
I do want to just address the couple questions that we've just gotten about customers wanting to switch from Sprint to T-Mobile. So we're working on the migration process. It isn't finalized yet, and it will probably be a fast follow from day one. So like Andy said, new customers will be on T-Mobile, and Sprint stack will be used for add-a-lines and upgrades, and more to come on migrations.
Awesome. Okay. Thank you for that, Marlena.
Sure.
Were there any other questions or comments that you wanted to add?
The chat has been a little bit has been quiet, so no, I think we're good.
Awesome. Okay, folks. Well, I'll take that as a sign that maybe we should proceed, because now we've reviewed everything we do to keep our stores running smoothly. Let's make sure we've got the processes and really the supplies we need to keep our stores, customers, and employees safe. Now, as retail store managers, you already know this, but ensuring that our stores, teams, and customers are taken care of is one of the most challenging, yet really most important jobs you have. Now, our leaders take safety and security seriously, and you should share that same perspective with your team. Now, I want you to consider for a moment, what is required to effectively respond to an emergency? Take a moment to ponder, what is it that's going to need to take place so that we can effectively respond to emergencies? Let me know in text chat. What are some of the things that you think are going to be important? Have an action plan and review it with your team. Oh, that hit me right in the feels. Staying calm. I love the staying calm. You know, there's like that saying, like no one ever in the history of the earth has ever gotten calmer when someone says, hey, be calm or calm down. They get calm when you're calm. And that works for customers, right? Maybe if a customer is upset and you're dealing with an escalation, if you tell them to be calm, they're probably not going to be calm. But if you can just lower your voice and talk to them in a calm manner, they'll tend to be calm. But you guys have some great feedback in there. I saw a lot about action plans. Really, the first few minutes of an emergency are critical. We're going to start with preparation. Everything we do, right, we want to prepare for success. And this is going to drive how well we actually can respond. So understand what the procedures are, put plans in place, and practice. Practice, practice, practice. I'm talking about practice. And I know Alan Iverson would be upset, but I'm talking about practice. But everyone on your team should know what they need to do in the event of an emergency. When we do that, we can act with confidence. That comes from preparation and practice. Your confidence helps everyone stay calm and take the right actions. You know, they say like in the event of an emergency, you'll see people running, right? And you'll see people, you know, running away. You'll see people running towards, right? Like you want to be that confident source that can come into those situations and really provide a sense of calm for your team. Now, getting ready for the day one of the new T-Mobile, we do need to take a few minutes to review what's required to respond to an emergency effectively. Procedures for Sprint are maybe business as usual, but I know that these procedures probably can't be emphasized enough. So let's take a minute to review how this should all work out for us. Now, all of our stores should have the following items prepped and ready to go in the event of any emergency. So you want to work with your team to build a list of emergency contacts and also define a communication plan. These are critical parts to preparing for any emergency. So what we want to have on hand are a couple of things. I love this first one. It's called the emergency backpack. And I don't think I ever had something like that. I had a first aid kit, and I never had an emergency backpack in my store when I was working in retail. But what this contains is emergency supplies for 4 people up to 72 hours. We can order this through the T-Mobile dealer order portal. And the vendor you're going to look for is PrepareSmart. And as someone pointed out, it's kind of like a bug out bag, but it's more of like a hunker down bag. Like if the emergency means I can't leave my store safely and I have to kind of barricade myself within, I can do that. And maybe you can take it on the go with you if you did have to bug out, I suppose. I hope this is something we never have to use, but the reality is there's a chance somebody might. Beyond that, we also have our emergency response flip chart. So it just kind of goes through some different scenarios and how you can prepare. We have store closing signs available on C2. If you want that doc number, and maybe you can help me out, it's 419, again, my home area code, and 304. So not Pitbull this time. 419-304 is the doc number for store closing signage on C2. And I love to talk about this last one because this one, I think, just kind of goes back to our way of doing business at T-Mobile and how we care for our customers. You'll also have the option to have these charging station or tabletop. It might be a freestanding one, but it might be tabletop as well, charging stations in your store. And you can order those through the dealer order portal. That's the hardest combination of words for me to say. But it's a different vendor. It's ChargeTech for the charging station. And we actually use this charging station to allow multiple customers to charge their device. So during an emergency, oftentimes customers have a hard time getting their device charged. Maybe there's been power outages or something like that. This is a way where we can help customers stay connected and really put them first in what we do. So in the event of an emergency, what should you do? Let's cover some of the basic ground rules. First, ensure all of your employees and that the customers are safe. That's the first thing we need to worry about doing. Second, we want to report the emergency to our proper chain of command. So in our world, That would maybe be our district or territory manager, our market director, and also our dealership to let them know what's going on and give them some details around the emergency. Any store closure decisions are going to be made by your chain of command, and they're going to make the final decision on the store closure. Now, if closing the store is approved, secure the store. When it's safe to leave the store, lock doors, close window gates, set the alarm. It's business as usual. Do what you can to secure the store. Now, number 4 is kind of that one with an asterisk, because this is all contingent on whether or not you have the time and you can do this safely. If you don't have time to do it because it's not going to be safe, get out of Dodge. We'll live to fight another day. So what you can do, though, if time and safety allows, move any boxes off the floor, the physical floor, not necessarily the sales floor, right? But the physical floor. If there were to be a flood or something like that, this could protect valuable assets that we have. Also, cover anything that can't be moved. So, like your point of sale systems, cover them with plastic bags. We can maybe protect them from soot or debris. I will say number 3 here, this third bullet point, is probably a good best practice any day, but definitely in the event of emergency. Try to move your higher end demos to the safe or the cage to be secured overnight. We also want to double bag our cash with 2 deposit bags to place it in safe, just to put that extra safeguard in there to protect it. And lastly, power down all equipment. So if the store must be evacuated, you have a plan in place. Now, I will say there are times, in some cases, where an emergency may not be urgent, but it still needs attention quickly, and a facility work order might be required in those situations. So there's a couple different options that you have for Legacy Sprint. Any facilities types of issues that you might have that need urgent attention, you have an online ticketing process, a live chat, you have a phone number that you can call, and I love it because it's 24 hours a day, 365 days a year. There's also an email that you can send. I don't know that that's the preferred option. I would actually say this is probably listed in the order of operations, but the email is only on Monday through Friday. Let's be honest, we work in retail. We definitely work some weekends. So let's make sure we're following what we have. So I'm going to leave it here for a minute. Take a picture, give me a screenshot, and give me a G2G when you're done, because I want to give you a chance to save that information, because nothing would be worse than during an emergency or some type of facilities issue, you didn't know what you should be doing or who you should be calling. So please take a picture. I see lots of good to-goes flowing through. I appreciate it. All right. Now, I will say, sometimes your emergency may involve an employee-related incident. So we have our Enterprise Security Operations Center to report any employee-related incidents. We also have Consumer Markets Emergency Response at t-mobile.com. And we also have the ability to do Android video call and Apple FaceTime. So do me another favor. I'm just going to leave it here for a minute. Take a picture or a screenshot. Get these numbers saved so that if there's any employee-related incidents, you have a path to success. And I already see the good to goes coming through, so I appreciate that. I'm going to give one last plug here because we're really getting close to the end of the day here, folks. The standard operating procedure site, the landing page on C2, y'all need to have it saved. 419305. Have that bookmarked, have that written down in your notes. This is going to be kind of the starting point for a lot of the information that we're looking for. So before we go into a review for the day, I just wanted to give my SMEs one last chance to maybe address any specific questions that came in during our safety and security portion of the conference.
I don't have anything to address, Andy.
Okay, awesome. I hope y'all aren't fading on me. Sometimes no questions make me nervous. So I just want to make sure we're pretty clear. I think this one's a little more cut and dry. It's about having a plan in place and things like that. So Marlena, thank you so much. I appreciate it. Let's review really quickly. I want to check your knowledge. So we're just about to wrap up your first session, and we've certainly covered a lot of great info today. Let's take a minute to review what we've learned. So the in-store operations daily checklist contains many tasks that need to be completed prior to the store's opening. Which of the following tasks is incorrect when it comes to being ready to open? This one's tricky. How about we hit it? So give me an A, B, C, or D for whatever you think is the correct response in the text chat. Y'all are pretty good. You guys did better than my AM session, I think. D is the correct response. And actually what makes that a correct response is that your inventory for the day, maybe in that time delayed safe, or outside of that time delayed safe, I should say, is up to 40 devices, not 25. So I make sure that you can be set up for success. But we're using that strategically, right? We don't want to have more inventory outside of that time delay safe than necessary. Okay. Question number 2. Now that we have 2 types of inventory, this is going to take some next level organization. Which of the following is true about inventory safe organization? Is it A, B, C, or D? Let me know in text chat. There's only one correct response for this one. I would say it's about 50-50, and I can see maybe where we got off the rails on some of them. But B is actually the correct response. We want to keep our legacy Sprint stack inventory as physically separated as possible from the T-Mobile stack inventory. We have to keep it up top with my love. That's where Beyonce keeps it. But I can see a lot of people put D in there. And I will say the reason that it's not is there's more than just the SKU number that's going to follow that TM or SP. We're going to put the last 4 digits of the SKU number, but we're also going to put things like the make, model, color, storage size, those kinds of things. So while you're not wrong that TM and SP should be used, that is one thing to point out. And we have a couple more questions here. Actually, I think this is our last one. What is new for the Remo device once your store becomes dual stack? You guys are already jumping in there. Is it A, B, C, or D? I think the A's have it. Hey! If you put A, give yourself a pat on the back. Shout out A! Because the Remo device will now include the GST tool right on it. So nicely done. If you didn't, that's okay. You'll again have a bunch of resources at your disposal. Make sure that you're successful. So I will say it's been great to see you respond via WooClap and in the text chat to some of the questions that we have and give us some answers. We're going to move into our Q&A session, or as Michael Scott would say, well, how the turntables. We're going to allow you to ask some more questions that you might have. I think we addressed probably a lot of it along the way, but we'll open it up to our subject matter experts. What questions and answers, and before you jump, I guess let me say this before I do that. Before I open it up to our SMEs, before we start taking your questions, make sure you stick around because you're going to need to record your attendance for this session. So if you have any questions, submit the remaining questions you have in the Q&A pod, and our SMEs will do what they can in order to make sure they can answer those questions for you. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen. let us know that we're working on Q&A. So what questions are coming in?
We don't have a lot of questions coming in, Andy. There is one question I couldn't answer about the tabletop. You were talking about that in the security section or the emergency section.
Okay.
What the vendor for that was. So I think that's probably on a slide you've got.
Yeah, let me go back to that. I don't want to say it wrong, so let me get the exact verbiage for it. Good. Any other questions?
While you're doing that, I think we answered most of the questions in the Q&A chat, but one that I will bring up because we got it a couple times was around whether you could use the TIMO device to receive Sprint inventory. And the answer to that is no. You'll use the specific hardware and associated software to receive the inventory for a specific stack. So you'd use RMS to receive Sprint inventory, use the TIMO to receive T-Mobile inventory.
Awesome. Okay. Thank you for that. I did see a question around this. If a TIMO device is maybe not working or it's broken, how would we manage our inventory in those situations? What type of contingency plans do we have?
If a T-Mobile device is broken, and I have questions on the question, like is it a new device that you've just received, or is it a customer return, like a warranty exchange?
I'm guessing it's more like if they're managing their inventory, like doing an inventory count or receiving a shipment from the T-Mobile stack and the T-Mobile device isn't functioning. What's kind of the contingency plan in those situations versus waiting 2 days, to do something?
Yeah, I believe if the device isn't working, then you would, and you got it in a shipment, you would, like if it's damaged, you're not really going to know if it's working until you take it out of the box. But let's say the box is damaged and you can tell that there's some physical damage to it. Carolyn can chime in here, maybe. I don't know if she can get off of mute. But
I don't think I did a good job of explaining that question. The question was around the actual TIMO scanner device that we.
Oh, the TIMO scanner device isn't working. Sorry. There probably is a way to call or submit a ticket on that.
Okay.
Hold on. Carolyn can't come off of mute, but she can IM me what the answer is.
All right, cool. We'll stand by for that one. I see some questions coming in chat. If you can do me a favor, if you have the option, put them in the Q&A pod because we can save them and export them there. So if you have those questions, definitely get them into the Q&A pod, please.
There's a question about migration from Sprint to T-Mobile. Will it require a credit check on T-Mobile's end? Stay tuned. Like I mentioned previously, that whole process is being looked at and worked through, and will probably be a fast follow to day one. So when it comes out, it'll walk you through everything that needs to happen with those customers. At this point, it would be premature to assume what would happen. So there is, for the TIMO device question, if your TIMO device is not working, which would be problematic, you can submit a ticket to the service desk.
Gotcha.
And then if it's a dire situation where you really need one right away, you could work with a nearby store to borrow one.
Gotcha. Okay. Yeah, I think that answers the question. So you'll have to work with your nearby stores to borrow the TIMO scanner temporarily. So I hope that's a situation that we're not in, but that's a great question nonetheless. So there were some questions around the prepaid brand. I think I've seen it come through a couple of times. Will we have prepaid in stores at day one to sell? Do you know anything on that?
I don't. So we'll have to take that one and follow up on that.
Thank you.
Oh, it looks like Carolyn did answer that for now. although I lost it. Just Sprint and T-Mobile brands for now.
Okay. Just Sprint and T-Mobile brands for now. Thank you.
So somebody was asking about whether there would be management from a nearby store able to assist on day one. I think there's some discussions about that, but we don't have any definitive plans at this point. So stay tuned. If that becomes an option, it'll certainly be communicated.
So Brian asked the question, and I might have missed it as I was trying to scroll through the text chat, so I apologize if I repeat anything. Tomorrow's session, Brian, we will actually talk about that co-location model, so making sure that you understand how that will happen. It's not going to necessarily apply to everybody, but I think a vast majority of stores will have those experts and vice versa. So if you'll have hopefully a guide in your store, or at least maybe a point of contact that you can reach out to if you don't have somebody physically stationed in your store. So it's a great question, and I'll talk a little bit more about our session layout at the end. So fantastic question. I don't see a whole lot of questions coming in. I don't know about the Q&A pod. There is a question about the change of ownership process. So can you do a change of ownership from a T-Mo to a Sprint account or vice versa?
Yeah, it's a good question. I don't know the answer to that. We'll have to follow up.
Okay. If you didn't, Quincy, can you put that in the Q&A pod for us just to make sure we have that one documented? Kimberly, I see your comment in there, the text chat. I will say try and extend that same courtesy to your fellow T-Mobile peers, right? You guys are experts in the Sprint brand, and they are experts in the T-Mobile brand, and we will make ourselves experts together. But I think opening that dialogue and having that relationship is going to be really, really important. Whether or not you have that person stationed in your store, and let's be honest, if I have one person maybe assigned to my store, they're not going to work 24/7. So you're going to try and schedule that person during peak hours, and we'll get into that tomorrow. But we want to make sure that we have those relationships built because we're all on the same team now. There's a question, Marlena, that you might be able to handle here. When an accessory is returned in the Sprint stack, so maybe it's sold out of the Sprint stack and then it's returned in the Sprint stack, which distribution center will it go back to if all accessories are going to be in the T-Mobile stack?
It'll follow the Sprint path.
Okay.
Once it's interstack transferred, it belongs to that stack and does everything that stack would do. Okay.
So for an accessory account, at the very minimum, at least accessory returns would be in potentially the Sprint stack. Okay. Fantastic questions, folks. I'm glad. That means that you guys picked out some good stuff. You figured out what was staying the same, and now you're asking some of these deeper level, kind of more granular questions, and I really love it because it shows me that you guys have been picking up what we're putting down.
Ryan is asking, can you transfer between stacks? My understanding is the only way to transfer between stacks is through a sale. So I don't think there's any way to do it otherwise.
Okay. You shouldn't have a need to do it otherwise, since
right.
You really just go grab it.
And sell it where you need it.
Yeah. It's not like when I went to KFC in Long John Silver's on that 11-minute break. Okay. Any other questions? Alicia, I can give you a chance if there's anything that you thought maybe jumped out to you as well as our trusty guide on the side.
Okay, no, I think our leads are doing a good job getting those answers for you. I am reaching out to see if there's any update as far as when C2 access is going to be available. I do know that our systems team is working really hard to get those to you ASAP. So stay tuned because, of course, we know you need those in order to be successful on the floor. So I'll see what I can find out for sure, though. I'll get back to you on that. Other than that, I think I'm good here. Thank you.
Okay, awesome. So, folks, I do want to just give you, first of all, if you could, do me a favor in text chat. Can you just let Marlena and all of our subject matter experts that have been helping Alicia, let them know thank you. Just give them some kudos for all the hard work that they put in today. We really, really, I know I appreciate their help. They are keeping my head above water, but they are true experts, and you're going to see that as we go out throughout this week. So just to give you a bit of an understanding of the roadmap for our operations readiness trainings, this was session 1 of 3, like I mentioned. Session 2 will be tomorrow, same bat time, same bat channel. No, actually, it will be at the same time, but we will have a different link. And I'm told that the dial-in number that's in your invite is not correct. So if you show up via the link, we'll then provide the dial-in number like we did at the beginning of our session today. So just keep that in mind. But our third session, focused on the customer experience and coaching, will be on Wednesday. And again, same time, and it will be the same. It'll be a different link and a different dial-in number than probably what is in your invite. So when you get here, if you're still having audio issues, just dial in that old-fashioned way before you go. But I do want to make sure that you all get credit for attending the session. So before I do that, I do want to say sincerely, thank you for your time today. I know you all sacrificed something to be here, and the world didn't stop because you sat in this training call for the last 2.5+ hours. So I just want to thank you for the sacrifices that you made to be here, and I love the energy and enthusiasm. You are what makes our company so special, and you make it special for our customers. And I can't thank you enough for the sacrifices that you make just every day in the COVID environment and beyond, how you take care of people. Because without your success, I can tell you right now, we're not successful. And we're rooting for you. We're the biggest cheerleaders. And I just want you all to be ready on day 1 so that you can hit the ground running. So from the bottom of my heart, from everybody on this call, from our SMEs to Alicia, just thank you. Thank you. So to mark attendance, that is a fantastic question. If I could ask that you refrain from using the text chat for just a little bit. Alicia put this nice line break in there. She's going to put this fantastic link in there for you. You're going to click on that link. You're going to answer some questions. Now, I would say you'll get about 80% done. When you get to that almost second to last step, there is a hyperlink that you can select. And actually, let me click on it and launch it for myself. I'm going to share my screen. So when you get there, you'll know what to look for. So, sorry, let me get to that page, and then I'll share. All right, you should see my screen. So this is 83% of the way through for me. You'll notice there is a link. Right-click it, open the link in a new tab, and you can sign into STAR and track credits for your course. If you're Sprint, actually this might only apply to Puerto Rico or U.S. Virgin Islands, but give it a try. It won't hurt anything if you try it, and then you should be good to go to submit. After that, you can drop. Oh, we do have a third and final class link. Let's double check our URL.
Hey, I'm double checking it. I'm going to go ahead and load in the correct link. Sorry about that, team.
Worries. Abort. I will say, if it's the worst thing that happens today, folks, I can tell you right now, it's been a great day. So
I agree. All right, here we go. I appreciate y'all for paying close attention to details. All right, link coming in. Here you go. Right, thank you for those who call that out. Appreciate you.
Yeah, and please use the new link. I want to make sure that you get the attendance properly. So after you've completed it, we would love to see your feedback, but please feel free. Have a great evening, and thank you so much for your time. Take care, folks.
All right, team. Just want to make sure that if you do need that link for the survey to track your attendance, please go ahead and click on that. As we are getting ready to close up the room, we'll go ahead and give it another minute. This will be your 1 minute warning. So please go ahead and click on that link right there in the chat box. We will be closing up shop. We'll see you guys here tomorrow. So again, go ahead and click on that link or copy and paste it into another tab. Just want to make sure, of course, you get credit for attendance. If you need some time, let me know in the chat box. You can certainly pause for another minute if we need to. Want to make sure you all get credit. All right, looks like silence is golden. You have to close out. Yes, let me go ahead and put in the link. Here we go. I'm going to make sure you, of course, get credit. Oh, thank you, JC. You are fast. Sweet, no thank you. Doesn't let you put your name. Huh. Have you ran into that issue, Andy? Did you find, because I know you went through it yourself.
I didn't submit an attendance through, but so I didn't run into that issue myself. I'm not sure. Let me try and test it out.
Okay, wasn't sure if you saw any errors on that. Let me try the link again from my FG and see if that helps. JC, I think you've had another link, is that right? Okay, cool. Let me go ahead and give you this link. Try it again. Looks like some of your peers are saying it didn't ask for the names, so just double check, make sure the link is good to go. Okay, Kristen, thank you. All right, go ahead and try that link, see if it makes a difference.
Yeah, I want to point out, use the link that says in-store operations experience. And so if it says anything about a different session number or whatever, that's not the one we want to use. I think we give a couple of links that are for future sessions. So like Brett, you may look like a time traveler if you fill out one of those, which is okay. Not the worst thing that can happen. But you want to use this last link that Alicia posted in here, in-store operations experience.
Thanks, Andy. Perfect. Thank you, Justin. If you were able to do that survey. Didn't ask for your name or certify. Okay. I'm wondering if they're able to track you. All right, you're good. I know we're working on the links to provide a better experience, so thank you. Okay, cool. Thank you, Connor. So you're not alone. Looks like it's just not asking for the name. All right, good stuff. Thanks, team. I appreciate y'all getting that filled out. You're awesome. Okay, thank you for the heads up, Veronica. You put your name and the organization in that same box. Okay, that works too. I know it did ask for the organization, so it doesn't hurt if you put your name. Awesome. I say don't overthink it. We know you were here. We got you. All right, you guys take care. Enjoy the rest of your day. I think we're going to get ready to close up shop. If you need anything else, let us know, but we will resume this show tomorrow. Looking forward to hanging out. Yes, indeed. We got more stuff in store for you. All right, team. Enjoy the rest of your day. Take care. All right, team. That does wrap up today's session. Thank you so much once again for attending. We shall see you back here tomorrow. Awesome. Thank you, team.